A Pulse Asia survey found 93% of Filipinos want affordable rooftop solar, but high upfront costs still block adoption. To put this into perspective, we are joined by attorney Mona Lisa de Malanta of ICSC and Alni de Moral of Ember. Welcome, attorney Mona and Alni. Let's get things straight. Is financing really the single biggest barrier between demand and actual installations?
I think at this point, that's what we can say. It is financing is the biggest barrier at this point, because of the high upfront cost. So while the costs of solar panels, of inverters have significantly gone down over the years, I think for ordinary consumers, it's still a huge drain on their resources if all of those amounts, if all of those costs will be needed upfront for the installation of the panels.
Definitely agree on what Attorney Mona has said because not everyone has a few hundred thousands of pesos readily available to make that full payment for the installations that they're gonna have. So this is where financing becomes important because it would allow those consumers to spread the payment over, say, 5 or 10 years, allowing the savings from their electricity bills to cover parts of their monthly repayments and also depending on their financial arrangement to eventually own their solar PV system.
But currently, which model scales fastest? Is it loans or leasing, installments, or utility-backed programs?
In the Philippines, it's actually difficult to say which model scales the fastest because we can track the installations by financing types. But I could say that solar loans were among the earliest financing mechanisms because they work similarly to other consumer loans like auto or education loans, which banks are already familiar with. The downside, though, is that not everyone can qualify for a loan. And that's why we are seeing now more solar leasing and installation options where consumers don't have to shoulder the full upfront cost of the system and can instead pay over time. I also see strong potential for the utility-backed programs because utilities already understand their consumers' electricity consumptions and payment behaviors. And for those consumers who are hesitant to transact with a new providers, a utility-backed program may feel like a more familiar option. But I also need to clarify that our goal must not be to identify a single best financing model, but to support a range of financing options so that our consumers can choose what works best for them.
I just want to emphasize, I think, the last point made by Alni, that it's really a combination of all these available models. And I think the more options we give to consumers, the better that they can identify what suits them best, what we're looking for. That route for consumers to find and to create their own, as I always want to say, they create their own energy destiny, no? So if they are, for example, a government employee and now GSIS, the government-backed pension system, already provides this facility for solar installation for government employees, then that could be the way for this particular subsector. On the other hand, for private employees, I think the SSS, the private sector counterpart of GSIS, SSS is now preparing to roll out their own programs, then that could be one that can be availed for them. And if there's still that subset of consumers that do not fall under either of those pension-backed programs, as Alni had said, then the good thing is we see this very positive development in the market that solar providers, solar installers are providing their own financing schemes. Some of them are partnered with banks. They partner with banks so that the consumer is now availing of the loan program from a bank. But some very innovative solar installers provide for their own financing schemes. So there's no credit, there's no significant credit ability or risk that the credit will not be approved because it's the installer that provides that facility. On utility back, I like what Alni had said about utility back programs or models. We have yet to see a significant scale of this type of models in the Philippines because we have very few private distribution utilities. A lot of our utilities are really electric cooperatives that do not have the financial bandwidth to extend this type of programs. But I really wish that we get to mature to like in other jurisdictions, programs like in Australia, where the utilities backed by the government.
So, if you were to make recommendations to our viewers, what one policy change would move adoption fastest?
If I may identify two, and I will explain why. First, I think on a national level, there has been a lot of discussions about the different VAT treatment, VAT treatment for rooftop solar, home-owned or consumer-owned solar systems, and utility scale solar. Utility scale solar enjoys zero VAT rating, compared to home-based or consumer-based solar, which do not enjoy the zero VAT. They're still imposed at 12% VAT. I think there's room for some parity there to extend the zero VAT rating to consumer-owned solar systems. I think that's a significant driver. Just that parity. It's not a special treatment that's being asked for by the sector, but just to equate it to utility scale solar treatment. The second is really for the local governments. There's a lot of opportunities for local governments to provide for their own incentive programs. So, and there are very progressive in local governments that have provided this type of incentive.
If I had to choose one priority, it would be definitely making rooftop solar more affordable through low interest financing. I can see that the government doesn't necessarily need to dictate the interest rates or provide direct subsidies. Instead, it can make financing more affordable by sharing part of the lender's risk through, say, guarantee programs or by channeling low-cost financing through development bank. As Attorney Mona said earlier, there are already like existing mechanism from my end. I'm familiar with the Phil guarantees, credit guarantee schemes, and the DBP's Eat to Save program. The next step is to expand this mechanism to cover more consumer groups and make the application process simpler and make people aware that these programs actually exist.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and for joining us today, Attorney Mona and Alni.
Thank you for everyone who joined us.
Thank you.
Once again, those were Attorney Mona Lisa de Malanta, Senior Advisor on Energy Literacy and Energy Democracy at the Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities, and Alni de Moral, Energy Analyst at Ember. For more news, visit asian-power.com.